Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
The fourth branch of government should not exist in the United States of America. There's 3 branches of government, not 4. And how are we going to shut it down? So one of the things I'm frustrated about is that didn't happen between 2016 and 2020. But there's actually one important reason why. This is big. And you know, people don't like to get into technical details. Well, you know what? Sometimes the technical details actually matter. The Supreme Court has now given us the path to actually do it in a rock-solid way. You got West Virginia versus EPA, probably the most important Supreme Court case of our lifetime in 2022, that said that, you know what, if they write a regulation, the EPA, SEC, FTC, whatever, if they write a regulation that Congress did not authorize them to write, then that regulation is per se null and void if it deals with a major question. That's a big deal. Then you got this year, Loper Bright, the case that actually overturned what's known as Chevron deference.
Yeah.
Big freaking deal for the country. This is a big freaking deal for the country, which says that courts no longer defer to the judgments of these agencies. Then you got SEC versus Jarkissi. There's a whole bunch of other cases which says, actually a lot of people don't know this, a lot of these administrative agencies have judge, jury, executioner, investigator, prosecutor, rule writer, all under one roof. Separation of powers is a myth. Jarkissi overturned that and said these administrative law judges are actually unconstitutional, just like West Virginia versus EPA said the regs are unconstitutional. Jarkissi now says that the judges themselves, the so-called judges within these administrative agencies, if they sit within the 3-letter agency, their judgments are outside the bounds of the Constitution and therefore null and void. That's a big deal, and we only got that in the last couple of years.
That's true.
So that toolkit did not exist in 2017 in a way that it does today. Now, does that guarantee that any given person who's running for U.S. president that even has made explicit promises, right? I made promises on the campaign trail if I was the next U.S. president that I was going to get in there and fire 75% of federal bureaucrats. Shut down the ATF, the FBI, the U.S. Department of Education. You go straight down the list. Food and nutrition services. We don't need a lot of these agencies. And yes, I would have kept those promises if put in that position. But given the choice now, okay, yes, it didn't happen before, but you have the Supreme Court, justices appointed by Trump to do it, and a guy who actually does want to drain the swamp. My best advice to the country is take the shot you have. And if you're a libertarian, you don't agree with 100% of the views, fine. Take the shot you have to take the next step over the next 4 years. And then we've got the next 250 years after that. That's the way I look at it very practically.
Breaking up America's tyrannical administrative state. Welcome back to Training Tuesday, and the Rob Maness Show is live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. Well, today we're going to discuss a new book, American Leviathan, the birth of the administrative state and progressive authoritarianism. But we're also later in the show going to discuss tonight's debate and a little bit of a segment on Haitians eating American cats. But first, friends, too many of us think we're still a constitutional republic, but we're not. We're an administrative state where we have powerful, unelected bureaucrats who do most of the deciding, most of the governing, and who are separated from the accountability of politics. The author of the book we're discussing today argues that the last 100 years have been a slow regime change, a slow-moving revolution against the founders and the constitutional republic. And I think he's right. All of this quote-unquote misunderstanding was Trump's greatest sin in the eyes of the D.C. swamp. He still thought, and I think he still thinks today, that we're a constitutional republic. I wish he was right. So how did we get here? Well, my guest today is Ned Ryan, author of this new book, due to be released in just 7 days on the 17th of September. And we're going to go in depth on that very thing, plus how we can deconstruct the administrative state, some of which you just heard there in Vivek's discussion. Ned's the founder and CEO of American Majority and Voter Gravity. He's the son of a former congressman, Olympian, and Presidential Medal of Freedom recipient Jim Ryan. Ned's also the author of Restoring Our Republic and The Adversaries, a story of Boston and Bunker Hill. Ned, welcome to the Rob Maness Show.
No, great to be with you, and great opening with Vivek. I mean, Vivek has been one of the best people to be talking about the fourth branch of government, which is deeply unconstitutional, and I would add, Rob, deeply un-American. In fact, the founders of the administrative state even admitted it. Woodrow Wilson, who I discuss in some detail in this book, American Leviathan, even admits that the model for the administrative state is based off Prussian and French models, really has nothing to do with the American tradition. And I make the point, and you alluded to this, the progressive statists, their whole point was to delegitimize the political and moral authority of the U.S. Constitution because they deeply resented, even hated, the original Constitution because of the separation of powers. And Vivek kind of mentions that with some of the SEC, and they're basically consolidating all the powers, judge, jury, and basically convicting these people without any due process. Yeah. And the thing that the progressives wanted to do was do away with the separation of powers. They wanted to consolidate all these powers into one central authority. And most of the executive branch is where the administrative state resides. They wanted to have the legislative, the executive, and the judicial powers in the executive branch and do away with the separation of powers because they wanted to consolidate that power to advance progress in their minds. And Rob, the thing that I try to explain in this book, progressives truly felt that the state was salvation. The state is the march of God on earth. They were obsessed with Georg Hegel, a Prussian philosopher in the early 1800s, and really felt that he had the answers to how they would reach an enlightened state as a country, how they were going to actually achieve the apotheosis of mankind, which is literally the deification of man. And they felt that it would be through the enlightened state, the administrative state. Therefore, if the state is salvation, you should consolidate all that power into it to advance progress and ultimately achieve salvation here on earth, which is a fool's errand.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you wrote this book, Ned, because, I'd be remiss if we didn't at least touch on tonight, because what I see happening tonight in this debate is that the representative of the administrative state, a.k.a. Kamala, is going up against the representative of those that still want a constitutional republic, Donald J. Trump. And I think the reason why it hit me today that Kamala really is that representative of the administrative state is because the Cheneys have gotten full-throated behind her. And Dick Cheney is the ultimate representative and player in the administrative state, whether it's economically, national security, or legal. He is across the board, or legislative, even he's across the board, that guy that really loves that ability to do everything he wants to do without Congress, without the judiciary.
Correct.
And everything else.
Yeah, no, I absolutely. The reason the administrative state has lasted as long as it has is because most of the presidents, including George H.W. Bush and George W. Bush Republicans, have accepted the premise that the administrative state is legitimate. And the only problem that they had is that they weren't running it. And that's an important distinction between Donald J. Trump and the Republicans that have held the White House previous to him, between he and Reagan, right? I want to focus on H.W. and W. They thought what was really wrong is that they weren't actually in charge of the administrative state. They actually fundamentally had no problem with it. And what the argument I make in this book is, this has nothing to do with the U.S. Constitution. It has nothing to do with a constitutional republic. And in fact, the only guy in American politics today, and I would argue in both parties, and the only major leader who believes in representative democracy is Donald J. Trump. And the reason I say that, Rob, is this. Donald J. Trump believes that as the duly elected representative of the American people in a constitutional republic, let's not forget, all power flows from the people to their duly elected representatives, which they entrust with the power and money to set up a form of government to actually advance and protect the interests of the American people. With elections comes change on domestic and foreign policy. Donald J. Trump showed up in 2016 and said, I'm the duly elected representative of the American people. I decide both foreign and domestic policy. And those in the administrative state, their allies in the Democratic Party, establishment Republicans, the corporate propagandists said, we don't think so. We think we actually decide. Right. We think the administrative state decides. And this was his great misunderstanding. This was his great sin in the eyes of permanent Washington, D.C., is that he didn't understand how D.C. has worked for, quite frankly, decades. And again, you alluded to this in your opening, and I make this argument in the book. We are a constitutional republic in appearance only. The real politics of how D.C. works every day is that most of the actual decisions made in governing this country are by unelected bureaucrats inside the administrative state. And here's the thing, Rob, that was always the point. That's not a bug. That is a feature of the administrative state. And when you read Woodrow Wilson and Herbert Crowley and Robert La Follette and Theodore Roosevelt and John Burgess, all of these founders of the progressive statist movement, that is what they wanted to see happen. They wanted to establish an administrative state. They wanted these unelected bureaucrats to be doing the governing. And then the only separation they were actually interested in is separating those administrators out from any political accountability. And so I make the argument in the book, no one's actually really truly representing the American people in the governing of this country, because it's not the administrative state bureaucrats. They weren't elected by the American people. They don't represent the American people. They represent themselves in their own interests.
Wow. You know, again, I'm so glad you wrote the book, because I don't think a lot of people, most Americans don't understand that we're no longer this constitutional republic, number one. And number two, what they really don't understand is that level of detail. And that's why I played that Vivek clip, that the legislative, judiciary, and executive branch powers have all been melded into one in these agencies. And that these recent court cases give us an opening. They give us an opening, but we have to take it. We have to know enough to take it,
Well, so the good news is, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, the Chevron deference and the Supreme Court doing away with that is actually a massive step in the right direction. Because again, it was the idea, if Congress had not fully legislated, kind of framed out, but not detailed out, it left it to the bureaucracy to put the fine point on it. And then judges would defer to whatever the administrators had decided, therefore making the administrators the actual governors, the legislators of this country. And what the Supreme Court did this summer said, we're no longer going to defer to these statutes and regulations coming out of the administrative state. And what they're doing is also saying the Article 1, the legislative branch, you actually have to start governing again. You actually have to start legislating, because, Rob, what they've been doing for years, I would argue for 40, maybe 50 years, Congress has really just framed out. They send these 4,000 or 5,000 page bills. Nobody reads them. But the point is, they don't need to read them because they're not interested in actually putting fine points to it. They send it to the administrative state bureaucrats and leave it to them to actually do the fine point and actually what it looks like in reality for how it would govern the country, which is deeply unconstitutional. Nowhere in the Constitution does it say we should subdelegate legislative authority to unelected bureaucrats in the Article 2 executive branch. And that is one of my big fundamental problems, among many, with the administrative state. They were never subdelegated legislative authority. It's just happened. That's why I say it's a slow-moving coup against our Constitution, because it has completely thrown out of balance the entire machinery of the republic. And the last point I'll make on this is this. That's what the administrative state founders hated, was the machinery of the republic. The separation of powers, in their minds, was a bug, not a feature. And it had to be done away with because it impeded progress. It made for a messy process, which is, again, a feature that the founders wanted. They did not want consolidated power. And so what the progressives have done for the last 100 years is destroy the machinery of the republic. And the reason I keep on using that term, the machinery of the republic, the diffusion of power, is the greatest protector of our natural inherent rights. Not a Bill of Rights. It's actually the machinery, and what the progressives have done have destroyed that machinery, consolidated power. And I would argue the administrative state, with their bureaucrats, deeply authoritarian, and one of the greatest threats to our civil liberties, greater than any foreign threat. Russia, China, the greatest threat to our civil liberties and economic freedom and every other freedom moving forward until it's dealt with is the administrative state.
Oh, yeah, you're absolutely right. And we've got to take a commercial break. We'll real quick, and I want to keep you for one more segment, because when we come back, we'll hear from Governor about these being ruled by these so-called experts. And I want to dive into this with Ned to see who these experts are, and then get into how do we repair the machinery of the republic with this opportunity with Donald J. Trump and the administration he's about to bring in. I'm Rob Maness. It's Training Tuesday, and yes, we can break up the administrative state here in America. We'll be right back.
Now, South Dakota's state motto is "Under God, the people rule." That could just as easily be the American motto. In America, we are not, and we will not be, ever ruled by an elite class of so-called experts. We, the people, are the government. In South Dakota, the people elected me, someone who was just a farm kid, to be our state's CEO. I raised my hand and I took an oath to uphold the Constitution of the great state of South Dakota and the Constitution of the United States of America. I upheld that oath and I defended freedom for all of our South Dakota citizens. And when I stood for re-election, they honored me by giving me more votes than any other candidate for governor in our state's history has ever had. I can't thank the people of South Dakota enough for their trust and for their faith that they put in me. But what I can do is I can get up every single day and I can work and I can focus on them, and I will continue to do that. I will defend their freedom. I'll use the authority that I have granted to me by the U.S. Constitution and the South Dakota Constitution to stop communist lockdowns from ever taking hold in South Dakota.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Training Tuesday here on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast, and we're talking with the author of a new book that starts out its title, American Leviathan, is all about identifying and devolving or deconstructing America's tyrannical administrative state and ridding ourselves of these progressive authoritarians that have developed it over the last 100+ years. And Ned Ryan is that author. And Ned, I like Governor Noem. I chose that clip because she talks explicitly about these experts. And you know, being ruled by experts, I don't think she's right, because I think we are currently being ruled by experts. I hate to disagree with her so explicitly publicly, but we really are in the situation that we are being ruled by experts. It's not just the bureaucrats. I mean, I bet she's got experts that come talk to her about legislation that they want to support, or her to support and sign off on every single week, right?
Yeah, no, I would disagree with her. I've been in D.C. almost 25 years, and it's very apparent that most of the day-to-day governing of this country is done by these powerful bureaucrats in the administrative state. And the point being, again, political accountability. What they did not want, and they actually believed was the corrupting influence in government, was politics. And so they separate out the administrators because they felt it was a noble thing, that nobody would ever abuse their power, this massive consolidated power, Rob. If you read the progressives back in the early 20th century, it's amazing the dangerous naivete they showed about human nature. I just have to make this point. Our founders got it right on human nature. They were optimistic realists. They were realistic about human nature, that we are imperfect human beings in an imperfect world. We should never be trusted with consolidated power, because many times we do what we can, not what we should. Therefore, if we're given consolidated power, guess what? The odds are we're going to abuse it, but they were optimistic that they could actually create a form of government that would protect our God-given natural inherent rights and take none of them away. That's why it's called a rights-based government. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men. Progressives were utopian statists. They really felt that through the power of the state, salvation would be brought to mankind and would create a utopia here on earth. They were also deeply naive about human nature because they trusted human nature and thought that somehow, through the power of the state and salvation brought by these technical experts, they would literally bring deification to mankind. I'm not kidding. When we talk about the apotheosis of mankind, they really felt that they would elevate human nature to a higher plane as we reach the end of history with this deeply rational state. The problem being, again, the accountability, not elected by the people. And turns out, I would say, Rob, it's not governing, it's ruling. Think about what takes place with a ruling class. They're not elected. They're not accountable. They never have to answer to the people. And their dictates become sort of an edict to the serfs. I call the administrative state kind of a feudal system in which the dirty little peasants had better figure out what's best for them because the enlightened oracles of God in the administrative state know what's best for them. So don't question, submit, and just listen to what we have to say. And I think the most recent example of that was this whole ridiculous COVID situation with Dr. Anthony Fauci declaring, "I am the science," and treated as an oracle of God, when in fact, quite frankly, I don't think he knew much about what he was talking about on any level.
Yeah, I think it's very evident that you're absolutely right. And he went back decades. His
Yes.
history of not knowing what he was talking about went back decades. And if you talk to people that were in the original AIDS fight and their
Yep.
families, because a lot of them have passed, Dr. Fauci is evil incarnate and shouldn't be allowed to touch the levers of power. And we were paying this guy $400,000+ a year, more than
I
the
think he was
president.
Yeah, he's the highest paid federal government employee who, well, we should have masks. No, we shouldn't have masks. 6 feet apart, which was all made up. The vaccine, which was not a vaccine, will prevent you from getting this. Oh, in fact, it won't, but you should get boosters that will help prevent the severity of it. And now we find out all the medical fallout from these people getting the shot, multiple shots, and then the boosters. I mean, it's insane what has happened. But this is what the administrative state leads us to, that we set up people as experts. What they then communicate to the public is treated, again, as God's gospel truth. Because, again, in administrative state thinking, because of Georg Hegel, the state is the march of God on earth. Therefore, it is almost your religious duty to listen to these oracles coming out of the administrative state. But the problem then becomes no accountability, no questioning, just submission. And that's not at all what the constitutional republic is about. And so, in the last chapter, I deal with real solutions for a powerful executive, say Donald J. Trump, because, again, the administrative state, for the most part, resides inside the executive branch. If Congress does not have the courage, I think it's probably a pretty good bet that they won't have the courage. A powerful executive over the course of 4 years can have a massive impact on breaking and devolving the state. And the last thing I'll say on this, the swamp, he talks about draining the swamp, Donald Trump does. The foundation of the swamp is the administrative state. Think of it as a pool. The swamp is the pool. Well, the foundation of that
Right.
pool is the administrative state. Break the state, you drain the swamp, you got a shot at restoring the republic.
Yeah, and then one of the things I wanted to ask you about is because you do have suggestions and recommendations in the book, is what are the specifics that we should be able to see from an executive like Donald Trump, and then the second part to the question is his actions and maybe his courage. Do you think it can influence Congress enough to where they can rise at least to the level of voting in favor of this when it's required to? I have to ask the question, Nick, because I want to get your opinion on that. But really, I'd like to hear the specifics of what we should expect to see from a Donald J. Trump administration from the outset that they all this.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that I mentioned in the book. A reduction in force a process in which he can go into various departments and order the secretaries. We want to have a reduction in force exercise. Rob, most people don't know there's about 2 million federal government employees. 800,000 of them have been classified as non-essential. So that's a great starting point for reduction in force. You can do a whole series of things. You can fire them. You can do a payout. So there's a lot of different things. There's a hard approach and there's a gentle approach. You can reclassify some of these folks. Schedule F as something that's been discussed in other places as well. I discuss it in the book. So there's just a variety of things. You can also do in-person visits. So one of the things that I've noticed as I've been here in D.C. for so long, a lot of the administrative state, the people that are inside of it, when a Republican comes into power, there is a whole series of stalling. They they just drag their feet on anything that the Republican administration might want. What a powerful executive can do is go to department by department, call in front of him those employees of that department that are slow playing what he wants to see happen, and either tell them, you will do it, the secretary will have you do it, and if you do not do it, I will fire you immediately on the spot. And so you start to do that, and the other departments start to get the picture. Hey, we better start doing what this person wants. So I think the thing that he's got to start doing is focus on the 800,000 non-essentials. I mean, it's kind of what Elon Musk did at X, right? He fired 90% roughly of the staff, and it works even better now. And I think if you fired 800,000 non-essential federal employees, most of the American people wouldn't even know that it took place. And I think one of the things for self-preservation, I make this argument, a Republican president for self-preservation should look at doing that because the administrative state is a patronage system for Democrats in which they launder taxpayer dollars into political donations for themselves and voters, by the way. They turn these people into voters. So the next Republican president needs to fire, reduction of force, reclassify some of these folks, and then he needs to put in, I make the argument, there's something called the Plum Book, which every administration gets about 5,000 or so political appointees. There's Schedule Cs, which are low level, about 1,300. There's some mid-levels, maybe not as powerful decision-making. But let's say there's 400 to 500 really significant, powerful decision makers, political appointees that each administration gets. President Trump needs to make sure, and this is one thing he did not get right, and he'll admit it, he did not get PPO, presidential personnel, correct the first time. He needs to send in rock stars to each one of these departments and agencies and get them to start reducing the force and implementing his policies as the reducing force. So there's a lot of different things that he can be doing, and if he starts day one, I think he could do a lot of damage in breaking apart that administrative state in 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, it all depends on his transition team, and I think you'll see indicators as that becomes public, right?
Personnel. So I've told people, if you're really following and want to see how an administration will play out, see who is in charge of transition personnel, right? Who's starting to make those personnel decisions, who will be deciding who those key initial spots are, like PPO and all these others, and then who's going to run PPO. And PPO is an extremely important role in every administration in deciding who's going to be placed, who's going to be the secretary, the undersecretaries, who's going to be a lot of the decision-making throughout the various departments and agencies inside administration. You have to get every last one of them right. But if you don't get transition personnel and PPO correct right out of the gate, you set yourself up for failure. And Donald Trump he was such the great outsider, Rob. I don't think he understood the importance of PPO. And the other thing that he has learned, and I think the first 4 years were a very good learning experience for him, he just didn't know what he didn't know. He didn't know the power that he had as an executive to reform the executive branch. I think he's figured it out. I think he has truly understood, I've got to do some reform. I've got to be serious about it. I've got to get the right people in the right places to be doing the right thing literally every day for 4 years. And if he does that, the man will be a legend and maybe the greatest Republican president we've ever had.
Absolutely. I think he's on track to do that, Dad. Well, thank you so much for coming on. We're about to run out of time. I want to give you an opportunity to tell folks where to get the book, where to find you, maybe say something about American Majority and Voter Gravity real quick, because they're great organizations that I've used before, and that's how I met you and your brother. So.
I appreciate it. So you can buy pre-order a copy at Amazon. So it comes out a week from today, September 17th, Constitution Day, celebration of our Constitution. Go to Amazon, pre-order a copy of American Leviathan. You can follow me on Twitter, NEDRYUN. I have a lot of fun on Twitter, maybe too much. AmericanMajority.org, you can find out more about our training. And then VoterGravity.com is our database, and in which we do a voter database and apps and phone systems that are used by a lot of state and local, but even federal candidates. So I really appreciate it, Rob, being able to talk about the book. I would encourage everybody get a copy of American Leviathan. I think it will be illuminating for you to understand our problems and how we get out of them with the administrative state.
Yeah, thanks, Ned. We appreciate it, man. God bless you. Keep up the great fight. You got our support. I'll push people to the book, my friend. Well, next, we're going to go to the audience, and you're going to hear from an unlikely Republican supporter of Donald Trump talking about tonight's debate when we come back. I'm Rob Maness. It's Training Tuesday. Go get that book, American Leviathan. You can find that on Amazon, Ned's site, and you go follow Ned on Twitter or X, and you can find links there too. It's a must-buy before next Tuesday when it comes in release, so go pre-order it. We'll be right back.
All right, everybody.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
This is something that people around her understand, that the way that you win debates is not with zingers and certainly not with policy.
Wrong. I do know that it's a very easy debate to win. So all you have to say is, look, you had 4 years, I had 4 years. Gas prices are up 50% when you're vice president. Electricity prices up 30%. Grocery up 22%. The list keeps going. Taxes were lower under Trump. They raised them under Biden and Harris. Regulations were lower under Trump. They raised them under Biden and Harris. Immigration numbers way down. They actually tried to stop the problem. Record numbers under Biden and Harris. This is a very easy debate to win because on the metrics, it's very easy to show side by side. They don't want to contend with the fact that they own the last 4 years of policy. We do have a very unique opportunity here where we have two candidates where you can look at 4 years and 4 years. You know exactly what they're going to do and you know exactly what the outcomes are. And on every metric, Donald Trump wins on this. And so that's what we're going to keep pushing this election toward, is what are the metrics that will actually make your life better? Donald Trump wins on this, on the policy and the outcomes associated with that.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Training Tuesday, and we're talking about tonight's debate in this segment of the show. And that was Dan Crenshaw there. He's not exactly the kind of Republican that I see as the big MAGA Trump supporter, but he is a smart guy. And he sees the writing on the wall, and he just went through a whole litany of why you should support Donald Trump and why Donald Trump should be able to win this debate hands down and win the election hands down, really, because you have two sets of 4 years to compare to each other. You have abysmal job creation. You have high inflation. Look, food prices are over 21% higher today than they were when Joe Biden took office. You have their destruction of the energy production in the United States of America, where we went from the largest exporter of oil and gas and energy around the world to now we have to beg people to lower their prices because gas and diesel and natural gas and anything associated with fuel and energy is just driving prices through the roof. And Donald Trump, he created the energy dominance that we once saw for a very brief period that brought prices down to the lowest levels seen in more than 2 decades, especially at the gas pump and those kind of things. So you have this comparison, and even Dan Crenshaw is out there publicly acknowledging it and encouraging folks to really take a hard look and make the best decision for the country. And the best decision for the country is to go with the candidate, really, and this is my opinion. We'll go to the audience to get their opinions here, and see what they think about what's going to happen in tonight's debate here in a second. To go with the candidate that has a track record and has said that they're going to do it again, and they've even got some new ideas that they put out there versus the candidate that also has a track record, which is a poor performing track record, and now is changing her message to actually mimic Donald J. Trump in many cases in order to walk away from what she's been presiding over as vice president with Joe Biden over the last 4 years. So that's what I think, and I think the debate tonight is going to be very interesting. As a matter of fact, Worldview Tube, I will be a panelist on our debate show tonight on Worldview 2 on our Rumble Live stream. You can catch that show there. We'll start at 7:30 p.m. Central Time with Brandon House, and it should be very interesting. We'll have some pre-commentary and then some commentary on the debate as it goes along. And these are usually fun because we actually put facts on our shows and our channel, and we don't sugarcoat it. And we'll tell it like it is and call it how we see it on that show tonight. So I encourage everybody to come check us out. We'd appreciate it and everything. And by the way, speaking of Worldview 2, the Roku Worldview 2 Roku app should be available this Friday, and within a few days after that, we'll be on Amazon Fire. And then in the coming weeks, you're going to see us get a channel slot on the Roku live stream, much like Real America's Voices and other independent news outlets that are really taking over the media space when it comes to telling the truth and putting the facts out there for the American people. So we're just going to be another voice added to that, and I'll keep you apprised of that. So let's go over to the audience in X Spaces to our host, Shell. And Shell, I see a few hands up.
Yes, sir. We have Lieutenant Colonel Larry Brock, sir.
How are you doing, Colonel? Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Larry.
Hey, I'll make it real quick. Do you think actual substance tonight is more important than what I'm going to call style? And what do you see as what President Trump really needs to do?
Well, what he really needs to do, I'll take that one first, is talk about his record and talk about his plans going forward and how they're linked to that record of success. And you know what? He needs to call out the opposition's lies. He needs to call out the opposition's failures, and he needs to do it in the way that only he can do it. As somebody said once, I think it was Corey Lewandowski, and he said it recently, you still have to let Trump be Trump. And the way the debate rules are, I think they're almost identical to the CNN debate that was done with Joe Biden. That worked very well for President Trump, and he played the situation extremely well without going too far one way or the other. And he stuck to his record, and he attacked and pulled apart their record. And that's the key thing. Now, what she's going to do is they're worried that she's going to devolve down into her word salad stuff, like she's talking to a classroom of kindergartners or preschool kids. And she's going to try to not do that and try to spew out as many of her one-liners as possible to attack Trump in a personal way to try to get him to respond to her. And that's going to be the difference between the two tonight. And what was the other question you asked, Larry?
No, you answered both of them, Colonel. Thank you.
Okay. And Shell, I see a hand up too. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I was kind of wondering, how do you debate, sir? How is Trump going to debate with his policies against someone who has no policies as of yet, sir?
Well, actually, she does have policies. They put a policy page out in the last 24, 48 hours or so on their website. And I know a lot of people don't like Brett Baer, but he tweeted out earlier, I think it was today or late yesterday, that according to the metadata, when you go look at the code for that page, a lot of it was just copy and pasted from Joe Biden's campaign webpage and all that. And then she's got these mimic policies that she's put out there. Some of them are mimicking, like no taxes on tips for the service industry and those kind of things, so that so that she can glom onto what's been successful for Donald Trump. And I think you can expect to see Mr. Trump absolutely pick those apart in detail to show the American people just how shallow this campaign is, how shallow the candidate on the other side is, and that she really doesn't have much depth at all. Matter of fact, I'll just say it. She has zero depth. Her intellect, I think, is, I'm not sure how she got a law degree, let alone was elected to be the Attorney General of California or even a district attorney, quite frankly, because she is just not with it when it comes to this level of performance and what needs to be done, and the ability to make decisions by a person that's going to be even vice president of the United States. You know, she's real proud of saying she's the last person in the room when Joe Biden was making a terrible decision about the Afghanistan withdrawal, and that she supported it 100%. And you know, nobody in the media has really asked her a detailed question about that. I mean, one question that she should be being asked over and over was, what inputs did you make to the president's decision on that withdrawal, considering such a terrible outcome where we had 13 American kids that were killed needlessly? I mean, their parents, a lot of them say that the Biden administration murdered their children because the operation was so poorly planned and thought out. And actually, I think went against the advice of most of the senior military advisors, if the truth be told, about the advice that Biden was getting when he made that decision, and with Kamala's support, it was against their advice. I'm pretty sure, based on some of the things that I've read about in that current situation. So he'll pick it apart, and he'll take them to task on their failures, on their policies. Any other questions out there before we go to our break here in just about 2 minutes?
Sir. Am I to understand there will be no audience there, sir? You know, she has this nervous laugh. Will that make it seem awkward for her? Do you think she'll contain that? What do you think her demeanor will be with no audience, sir?
Well, she tends to do the nervous laugh when the other person is speaking. And with their mics muted, she may be able to take advantage of that. I mean, that helped. Some people have said that helped President Trump because he would make comments that weren't always helpful to him while other people were speaking during the debates. I personally disagree with that. I think he was brilliant at interjecting, because it throws those people off their game. But the mics will be muted when the other is talking, so that might actually help her to not look too silly. But you know, she just comes off as silly most of the time, but we shouldn't underestimate her. And I'm sure Mr. Trump's team and Mr. Trump himself is not going to underestimate her. If you go back and look at the debate she did with Mike Pence, you can see that she managed to make herself be able to present complete thoughts at above a kindergarten level and talk about policy. And did policy comparisons between what the Biden administration was going to do and what the Trump administration did in that debate. So she's capable of doing it. It's just a matter of who rattles who, because she's going to be trying to get Donald Trump to go off on her to make it look like he hates women and hates black people and those kind of things, because that's the narrative that they like to present. Of Donald Trump and his supporters, which is ridiculous, of course, but that's what I think her primary tactic's going to be. But at the same time, she's got to come across as somewhat intelligent and be able to present her policies and contrast it with the Trump administration policies. And that's going to be much tougher to do, because the Biden policies are just so bad. They're ridiculously bad and failures, and have harmed the American people. And I think the reason why Trump's ahead, even in the polls of the environment where the media has puffed her up incessantly since she was anointed to be the Democrat nominee, that he's up in a lot of these even mainstream polls like the New York Times, even a point, is a testament to to how such a poor candidate she is, and how disliked the policies are of the Biden-Harris administration. Well, we got to take a break. When we come back, we'll get back to the hands, and the media is trying to say that the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, are not eating cats and those kinds of things. Well, I say BS on that, and we got a video to show it and prove it when we come back from this break on the Rob Maness Show. It's Training Tuesday. We're talking with our audience about the debate and Haitians and eating cats. Unbelievable. We'll be right back.
We live in uncertain times. In fact, we live at a time when our own governments all over the world are warning us that there could be big problems with our power grid. World War III seems to be right on the horizon. Let me ask you this. Do you have a satellite phone? Should communications go down with cell towers? Do you have a satellite phone to get a hold of that college student or your spouse who travels, whatever it might be, to get a hold of your senior adult parents? We have satellite phones at worldviewtalk.com, and you get the satellite phone for free when you sign up for their very reasonable payment programs for the service. Sign up for the service with a reasonable contract, get the satellite phone for free. Worldviewtalk.com. You'll also find they have, well, what I now have, which is a solar generator. Yeah, I have a gas generator, an LP propane generator, but what if that goes down? I want to back up to my backup. So I now have a solar generator as well. You'll find them at worldviewtalk.com. Check it out today, worldviewtalk.com.
What did you do? Why'd you kill the cat? Smile for me. Smile with your teeth. Go like this. Did you eat that cat? Did you eat it? No, why'd you kill it? Did you guys see all this?
No, we pulled up and she was just laying there with it.
Did you see her eating it?
Eating it.
She was eating it?
Yeah, she was.
You call the Humane Society, see if they'll come pick this cat up. It's deceased.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Training Tuesday, and the mainstream media is at it again. They want to lie to you to get you to disbelieve what your eyes and ears and senses are seeing, feeling, smelling about this issue about Haitians in Ohio. And if you didn't watch the video, that's a body cam video from police officers. It's labeled Ohio Body Cam. So they're police officers in Ohio. They are arresting a Haitian woman who was caught eating a cat by two witnesses, and you hear the witnesses at the end of the video. So the media that I'm talking about is places like The Hill, NBC, of course the other leftist outlets on social media say it's not true, it's been debunked, etc., and they're just lying to you. I'm not sure why, other than they think maybe we're dumb or stupid, or they think that we can continue to have the wool pulled over our eyes about this illegal alien invasion that they've orchestrated over the last 3 years, which is just the continuation of it. And believe me, both sides of the political aisle are behind this too, folks. But so they're capturing ducks and swans from city parks and eating them and cooking them, walking down the streets carrying them as if they were out hunting them. And I think dogs are disappearing from neighbors' yards too. So this is ridiculous. Just understand the truth. There are 20,000 Haitians that Kamala Harris has proudly brought in as part of another 100,000 from Haiti. The 20,000 were put into this little town called Springfield, Ohio, and their people's pets are disappearing because they're eating them. It's unbelievable. Let's go over to our audience and get their thoughts on this. So tell me I'm wrong. This is all just crazy lies, right, Shell?
No, sir, you are not wrong. So, hey, look, Eric Swalwell had a full-blown meltdown over just memes about this today. That's how badly upset they are, sir. Right there on Capitol Hill. This is amazing to me that this man is so triggered by the subject when there's actual video, sir, that this is happening, and he's up there blaming memes, sir. What do you think about that?
The mimetic warfare, as a lot of social media influencers that I watched in 2016 and 2020 really amped up yesterday with some of these major Trump influencers saying, "Hey, it's meme time, folks," and the memes are just great. They're fantastic. Vote for Donald Trump. He's going to save us, and he's carrying an armful of kittens. and it's just fantastic with AI now. With these images that they're able to create from them are beautifully done images, and it's unbelievable what the capability is there. But and it also makes it fast and easy. I don't know how many memes were put out yesterday specifically about Trump and kittens. But they are absolutely amazing. There's no end to them, and it's driving them crazy, I'm sure, because, imagery in the algorithms in social media has a tendency to get past some of the censorship tricks that they place in the algorithms. And once they break through that, an image gets around a lot more than just words or even a video and those kind of things. So I think it's amazing. And it's quite humorous. Other than, I'm not a cat hater, and I like my pets too, and I don't want them to be eaten by some crazy illegal that Kamala Harris has brought here. And Kamala Harris is very proud of it. There's a video out there. I chose not to use that clip because I don't want to give her any more press on a video on my show than I have to. But where she's very, very proud of the 100,000 Haitians that she's brought over here. Now we're not bashing a whole class of people, but in Haiti there is I'm not sure whether to call it a religion or a tradition. It's kind of a mixture of voodoo and Christianity. And if you read some of the posts that have been put out by people that have spent time in Haiti, they talk about the time after midnight when you hear the animals screaming because they're being killed, and it's not just farm animals, and because they're being killed due to this tradition or religion or whatever it is, and everything, and that's even today. So, and you can read about it through history. I mentioned Lewis B. Puller, General Chesty Puller's book that I read, his autobiography, which is one of the first real books that I read as a teenager, and he spends a chapter or two, I think, about his combat time in that part of the world and dealing with this type of activity and everything. So I mean, it's not unknown, and it is a reality. And I just don't think that we ought to be bringing them here to kill our pets and everything. And be able to get away with it. I mean, I think Mr. Trump and his administration, they passed something to make it a crime to abuse domesticated animals. Anyway, I've gone on too long. Let's take that hand.
We have Don't Bend the Knee, sir.
Love it.
Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Shell, for letting me come up. I was in Haiti for 10 months after the earthquake in 2010. And cat is a staple there, but that's not what I come up. I don't know what's going on in Ohio. So I had two questions for you, Colonel. One is just talking about federal force reduction. I don't know how the Pentagon works. Does the general staff serve at the pleasure of the president? Can he remove these woke communist senior officers out of the Pentagon? And then my second question is, do you personally know any senior officers? I'm talking 2 or 3 stars who would be up for promotion, who are patriots and who are America first, that Trump could put in those positions. Thank you, sir.
Well, first question is all commissioned military officers serve at what's called the pleasure of the president. Your commission is from the president of the United States. It says right in there that you serve at the pleasure of the president. So the president has a lot of power over removing military officers completely from service, as a matter of fact, and removing their commissions, reverting them to enlisted if they want to, those kind of things. They're like Ned was saying, there are soft ways to do this, and then there are hard ways. He's already said that any decision makers in uniform that were involved in the Afghanistan thing, he wants their resignations on his desk signed at 12:01 on January 20th, 2025, if he wins. But that's just the beginning, because we have this whole COVID vaccine mandate, illegal order debacle that has really harmed tens of thousands of Americans and caused manpower shortages, because it's also driven these poor decisions have driven the recruiting debacle in large part. It's a part of that, and we're so not able to recruit the numbers we need that some of the services actually cut manpower positions so they could look like they were able to recruit the numbers that they need, which is crazy, because we base those numbers on the missions that are assigned by the President of the United States and the National Security Strategy and the Congress. So the mission just doesn't change and go away because you can't meet your recruiting goal, and you can change your manpower requirements, reducing them. You're actually harming readiness by doing that. And these are generals and admirals that are making these decisions and allowing these activities to take place. So, yeah, we serve at the pleasure of the president. And likewise, on the flip side of that, the president can take an officer, even retired ones, and elevate them, bring them back on active duty if he wants to, and even elevate them and promote them. You remember a guy named Alexander Haig. His rise through the promotion system was kind of unusual if you go back and study what Richard Nixon did with him. And it made a lot of the military officers mad and everything. But the president can do that. And the president needs to do that in this case, just like Ramaswamy Vivek was saying he would have fired 75% of the bureaucracy, similar to what Musk did at X. The president needs to do that, but he's also got to do it inside of the Department of Defense in the uniformed part of it, on the officer side especially. But there's some senior NCOs out there that have made some really bad decisions and supporting these illegal orders and failures and those kind of things. None of them have been held accountable, and all I expect to see is some accountability. And some of that accountability, it ranges from calling people back from to active duty to investigate them under the UCMJ, the Uniform Code of Military Justice, and court-martial them. And some of it is let them go ahead and retire and get out, depending on what the situation was. So. I got a minute and a half left.
We have Jay, sir.
Go ahead, Jay.
We have Cookie, sir.
Go ahead, Cookie.
Hello. Hey, I got two questions. One, how come we haven't seen any anybody promoted 5-star general? Not that I've seen anybody worthy of it. And the last one is, has anybody seen that little white cat that's in all of the Karen memes? I haven't seen him lately.
I don't know about the white cat, but you haven't seen any 5-star for a couple of reasons, in my opinion. This is opinion. One is there hasn't been an activity that's reached a level like a World War II, the Pacific operation or the Europe operation, that's reached a level where somebody should be elevated to that. And two, I think there's a tendency to work against elevating somebody to that level since the MacArthur era. When, remember, Douglas MacArthur was fired by President Truman because Truman said that he was, afraid that he was going to violate the civilian control over the military thing is the real reason why he did that. So that's what's going on there. Well, we're come to the end of our time. We're going to be Whistleblower Wednesday tomorrow with Daniel Greenfield talking about 9/11. More importantly, why are people in America supporting the Islamists and their atrocities? now instead of wanting them to be eliminated so that we can prevent another 9/11. I'm Rob Maness on World YouTube and our X Spaces simulcast.